exactly.
This is Patty.
Thank you. Patty, nice to meet you. Thank you for hosting this. Really appreciate it.
All right. Where did my people leave? Oh, they're going back to the car.
They're already leaving now.
Because I played a little bit.
That's my superpower. I pick up the microphone and people go further away. It's great. That's awesome. It's my spiritual gift.
I ate onions.
That's good. All right. Yes, balcony's all good and all of that's fine. All right. Well, we are at 6:30, and while it's kind of an informal gathering, although he looks great, so it can't be that informal.
Yes.
We'll get started here. It's going to be a good night. My name is Jeff. I'm the pastor here. This is Patty. Patty's with Habitat. So a couple good things. Robert Buxton, who Shoko's husband, our pianist here, and has played in, gosh, it was probably 3 or 4 or 5 months ago. And I was like, I'd love to do a fundraiser. I've got this kind of show I do with classical and spiritual, and just how could we make that? I said, I think we got an opportunity to do that. But most importantly, we wanted to do this with a really good ministry, something that we can tie into and help that would not only that represents within the church here, but for the good city of Mebane. And so Habitat for Humanity not only has been an amazing brand, and how many of you guys have worked with Habitat at some point, given to Habitat, seen Habitat stuff, shopped at the Habitat Restore, taken something to the Habitat Restores? Yes! That is how we furnished our entire house, by getting things from the Habitat Restore. So we're all big fans of that. But aside from that part, Patty, tell us the good stuff that is really happening here.
Thank you so much for having us. We are delighted to be here this evening representing Habitat for Humanity of Alamance County. I have two great supporters from our organization, Roxy and Kathy. They're here to support me today. We are delighted. Habitat for Humanity, we're trying to grow year after year. We have built more than 180 houses through our history, 36 years and plus from now. We are the only nonprofit organization providing affordable housing in the county, so we are very proud of what we do. But the most important thing is putting God in action and loving the community and providing housing for those families who really struggle. So our program is dedicated for first-time home buyers, and it's a very strict criteria, but it's more likely to support those who are low-income families. And it's a great honor, honestly, to work with the families and to see the generational effect that we are providing through housing. And with generous supporters like you, it is possible to us to do that. So the main sources of our funding is through donors like you, supporters, grants, the mortgage. So the families pay a mortgage, we're trying to make it affordable. It's 0% interest, and also it's 30 years long and less than 30% of the gross income. So we have to make sure that they be able to pay their loans, but affordable to their needs. So it's a great honor and opportunity to see God moving in an organization through the volunteers who are such a great asset to the organization. I would say it is the strongest asset that we have. So for those of you who already have supported through building the houses, giving your goods to us, and doing this tonight, honestly, we are honored to be here tonight representing Habitat for Humanity, what you're doing for the community. That's amazing. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Patty. So, music's going to be amazing, but I also want us to be able to make sure that we are able to donate to Habitat. So, just want to invite you. We have a box at the back on the way out that says offering, that sort of thing. There's also one at this door if you want to put your donations in there. You're also welcome to take one of the envelopes. If you write a check and make it to Habitat, that would be perfect. If you're doing cash or want to make it to Mebane, but write Habitat on it, we'll make sure all that gets sent either way. But please make sure we make some donations, and either on the way out, put it in the box. If you want to, while you're thinking about it now, want to write it, put it in the envelope, and then drop it in on your way out, that is great. Just want to make sure that we make a good contribution. We're going to be blessed in many ways well, as Martin Luther said, besides theology, music is the greatest art that moves the soul and opens us to hear God's word. I love all of that. But especially connected with Habitat, whether it was the Old Testament, whether it's in the New Testament, whether we get to Acts, we always hear again and again God reminding the church of Israel to take care of one another, especially the people who are most in need. Always. Why, the cue is the widows and the orphans because they're most vulnerable in that society. But we have folks in America, what makes us vulnerable often is economics. And so we want to make sure people should have a place to live. There's so many challenges. It's such a big issue. But every time we can step in to help in affordable housing, finding just the dignity of having a place to be. As Methodist pastors, we get moved around some, and Christy and I had just a couple months we were going to a church that they didn't have a parsonage, and you had to find a housing. This was over in Fuquay, where the market was crazy. We couldn't even find a place to rent. And it was, and we knew we would get one eventually. Like, this wasn't the end of the world, but it just felt so uncomfortable. Like, I don't know, where could we live? Can we get close enough? Is there something available? So it is such a huge concern and for the well-being of our communities. So all that we can do to support affordable housing, being part of that, witnessing, helping people get that step up, knowing that the church, the community is for that. So important. So please be generous in your giving tonight. And Robert, you are amazing. All the things that you do, maybe in the time you'll share us a little bit about your background and such, but I'm just excited. So help us engage this evening.
Thanks. Well, thank you all for coming. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Christy. Thank you, everyone in Mebane United Methodist and Habitat for Humanity. And yeah, please donate. Habitat for Humanity is this great organization. Jimmy Carter is active in it for so long. And all the donations are going to Habitat. So about me a little bit, I guess. I mean, my official title is, as you know, I'm Shoko's husband. And she gives her best. She's not here tonight because she's currently, I just got a text from her, she's chasing our 2 boys and our 2 cats around the house. So, with us all in spirit. But I'm gonna start with an odd thing, or maybe it's not so odd. I haven't been doing this. I did this for the first time in public yesterday in a concert. So it's because some people have told me, well, the gospel is good, but the classical, I don't know. And I said, well, maybe because classical music today has become very, not in all cases, but there's an association of being very formal and very rigid. But in the old days, like 150, 200 years ago, they did improvisation at concerts all the time. So I can't believe I'm setting myself up to do this, but I figure we better honor tradition, right? So I have an old receipt here. I think it's Walmart. Okay, this is how music is made. What I'm going to do is I need a few notes from you. You could shout out like maybe 4, 5, 6 notes. Give me a note, anyone. F. Okay, let me write it down. You can sharp or flatten too if you want, but we got F. Okay, what another one? C. Okay. Maybe. C again? Oh, I didn't hear it. Oh, that's okay. A. C sharp. Okay, there we go. And a couple more. Okay, I heard an A. This is like, all right, B flat. That's quite. Okay, that's good. So F, C, C sharp, A, B flat. I'm writing it down because yesterday I did it. I was improvising and yada yada. But then, wait a minute. What are those notes again? So let's play the notes here. Kind of unusual, but I like it. What should the mood be at first? You tell me. Mysterious, I like that. Okay, I'm gonna do that. And then, it's not gonna be too long, so. Mysterious, and then how do you want it to end? Peppy. Peppy, okay, very good. Okay, well, here goes. Could have been. Well, we have some peppy gospel coming up. So, but it's fun to do that. You know, they used to do that in the old days. So let's start with gospel. Though this is like an eclectic mix of things. It's like going to a buffet and you have some lasagna and pad thai and everything in between. And there's maybe not really a literal connection between all of them. But I like to quote Willie Nelson, who I think he said this, that it's all gospel, really. Well, maybe not all, but music, but a lot of it you can think of. So, but let's start with gospel. I'm going to play something called "It's Where No One Stands Alone" by Mosey Lister. You know that a lot of people have done it. Merle Haggard, I think Elvis, and many others. And Mosey Lister lived this very long life, and he was 34 years old, which I find interesting because I'm 34. So he was driving in northern Georgia, and it was the middle of the night, and he was quite in a place in his life he was feeling lost and confused and all these things. And the music just came to him, this. So it's a beautiful, you know, old-time Southern gospel. Tell me a little improv on it as well, so here it is. We'll just go back and forth between those two worlds. I have to switch in my brain somehow. Well, all the classical pieces I'm playing. And by the way, I think the word classical is odd because it refers to so many different styles from so many different periods of time. Same with gospel. That's very different from something that, say, Mahalia Jackson would sing, which I'm going to do in this things in the style of later. But this is a Shoko story to start with. So I'm doing this project. I call it a project because it's been going on for a few years now and not going to end anytime soon. It was a crazy pandemic project. I saw several documentaries about great violinists of the past, like Jascha Heifetz or Yehudi Menuhin, these great players. And I decided, that's it, I want to switch instruments because I love the violin so much. I still do. The piano is, it's bulky, you can't carry it anywhere. Jeff and I were, thank you, you're so strong. I had to move this thing, and it was actually my idea, but still. So, I told Shoko the next morning at breakfast, and she was quiet. And if you're in the choir or the bells, you know that look. And so she was just like, okay. And I said, so you think it's a good idea? Well, okay, what do you think? And she said, I know somebody who tried to do something like that. They tried to switch instruments, and they had to practice for 15 hours a day for years. It's not worth it. And we just had Max who was just born. And so I just said, it's great to have dreams, but sometimes you gotta be a little more practical. So I said, okay, you're right. But then I came up with plan B, which was to play violin repertoire arranged for the piano, and that's what I'm doing. So this first piece is it's played frequently on the violin, but it's from an opera. This is Petny, by the way. This is from an 18th century opera by a composer named Gossec. Not too well known anymore. He was in his time. Mozart knew him and all that. And this gavotte is a dance. And French operas always have dances. It's like, if you like barbecue, which you do in North Carolina, so you have to have some Texas Pete. Well, depending on where you're from, but in North Carolina, you have to have Texas Pete with it, or at least has to be on the table. Okay, so French opera has to have dance. It's just one of those things, dance sequences, I call them. And this is one of those. I find this piece very cartoonish and very funny because you're going to hear a musical hiccup. Let me demonstrate. It's on the one hand has that hiccup, but on the other hand, it's evoking the world of France before the revolution, the powdered wigs of Versailles and all that. But then it has this hiccup, it's just out of the blue. I'll show you what I mean. Yeah, it's like that. And it's funny. It would work very well for a Bugs Bunny or Looney Tunes. Yeah. Who introduced all of us to classical music, ultimately. maybe that's the most upbeat piece on the program, because I mean the world changed. French Revolution happened, and then, I mean, for better or worse, probably for better, but still, the mood of at least classical music after that was not always so bright and peppy. Think about Chopin or something. So, this is sort of, could be classical, could be gospel, could be, I don't know what you'd call it. This is an arrangement, and I love, arrangements. I'm doing all arrangements because I love to pretend to be something I'm not. Like I was saying violin or a singer or whatever. So this is Oh Danny Boy, the Londonderry Air. And it's arranged by, it's a classical piano arrangement by Percy Grainger, who is this Australian pianist, composer, a very bizarre person. Weird. I won't say all the things about him, but a couple little tidbits. One thing is he liked backpacking. This was like in the late 1800s. Do you know many classical pianists who do that? Well, he would, camp and backpack from one concert to another in Australia, show up 10 minutes before with his pack and just put it on the floor and start playing. See, I love that in those days, not that the old days were better, that's not what I'm saying, but there were musicians had personality, Percy Grainger also loved physical labor. I don't know, maybe this was before, they had those, CrossFit, whatever, in Brooklyn they do those. Anyway, I don't know. When he would travel by ship across the ocean, he would beg to be allowed to work in the boiler room, shoveling coal. Interesting guy. But this is his rendition of Oh Danny Boy, which it's not exactly clear what the text is about, but it's probably, I think, from what I understand, it's a father speaking to his son who's going off to fight in the First World War, the Great War. And I just think, a different war, but I think about all the images on TV, like the D-Day a few days ago, the 80th anniversary. And my grandfather was in it. It just makes me think of this music. So here it is. classical piece. This is by Rachmaninoff, Russian composer. My mother's Russian. My father is like an 8th, 10th, or 10th generation Southeast Virginian. But this music, in a weird sort of way, involves both sides of my family in a certain way. So, Sergei Rachmaninoff, this piece is called Margaritki in Russian, or daisies, the flowers. He wrote it for voice originally in 1916 and piano, then he arranged it for solo piano, and it's very much often done on violin. That's why it's part of my violin program. That counts, yeah. Anything counts. I keep finding more and more things online because I thought that this violin thing was going to be a short-lived, now it's just going on forever, but I love it. So, my grandfather met Rachmaninoff, not my mom's father, but my dad's father, the one who was in D-Day, Sam Buxton. He was a big classical music lover, and in the 1930s, during the Depression, he was a dental student, and he got this, I guess it was a part-time job or something, but he wanted to go to the concerts. And they had the likes of people like Sergei Rachmaninoff giving a recital. I mean, what I would give to go back in time. Nowadays, you have to put up with people like me, but back then, you had Rachmaninoff. It's just unbelievable. So, the boss told my grandfather, don't let anyone through these doors, kind of like that. And my grandfather stood guard, and then, about 10 minutes later, somebody tried to open the door. So, it's a true story. So my grandfather pushed back, and then there was this kind of tug of war. And then suddenly, wham, the door was kicked open. Now, first of all, if you've seen a picture of Rachmaninoff, you'll know he was 6.5 feet tall. He was Russian, so he hardly ever smiled. He had a shaved head. Somebody said, what do I do? Yeah. Somebody said he looked like an escaped convict. Well, all 6.5 feet of Rachmaninoff, he spoke to my grandfather at that moment. Do you know what he said? He said, get out of my way. So I had this great personal connection. Spoke to my grandfather. That's true. But Rachmaninoff was concealing what was possibly, I'm not a doctor, but he may have had Marfan syndrome. He had very large hands, very tall. He had a lot of pains, physical pains. He had a lot of emotional pains because he and his family, they left Russia right after the revolution. They were members of the aristocracy, but they didn't have any real privilege because his father gambled away the family money when he was a boy. So he grew up without much, but when the revolution happened, they found that they weren't going to fit well in the new culture there, so he came to America. But Rachmaninoff was so deeply Russian, he didn't want to speak English. He only could say like hello, goodbye. He apparently could say get out of my way too. His house in Beverly Hills, California, which I know he apparently liked. Nothing wrong with Beverly Hills, but he chose it. But he made it an exact replica of his home in Russia. He was so nostalgic. Even when he was in Russia writing this piece, I think this piece is all about nostalgia. I think it's the nostalgia of what are maybe his most positive memories, spending his summers in the countryside with his grandmother. As my mother was Russian described, in Russian are these endless fields of wildflowers. But anyway, so here is the piece, Daisies by Rachmaninoff. just a little hard for me to get through that piece because it reminds me a lot of my uncle, Boris, very Russian name. My uncle Boris died recently, a few months ago. And he was not a musician, but he told me stories about Russia all the time, since I was a kid. And he would come to my parents' place very often. I think mainly for my mom's food, but also just to be around. And he's a great novelist, also a storyteller. But he always told, I would play Rachmaninoff for him when I was starting to play those pieces. And he always told me, you're playing the notes, but it doesn't speak Russian yet. But I think I know what he meant more and more now. I still don't speak the language. I'm working on it to the chagrin of my mom's friends. And I goes, why you don't speak Russian? What's the matter with you? But anyway, so I'm also trying to learn Japanese too because But anyway, let's do a little gospel now. That was a few classical pieces. So I'm going to do Amazing Grace, but in a more upbeat style than usual. The story behind this hymn, of course, John Newton was involved in the slave trade, and he had this conversion experience and realization of how evil it was. He repented of his ways, and he wrote Amazing Grace. It's an incredible story. So I'm going to do a little Southern gospel to it. We'll see what happens. Shoko told me, don't talk too much, like I do at home or in the car. So let's see. How about another gospel? This one I'm going to do What a Friend We Have in Jesus in a very slow style. I was telling Pastor Jeff that earlier today I played in Chapel Hill, the funeral for a wonderful person who I didn't know personally, but it's a young woman who died from cancer at 39, which is just, and I thought about these old hymns because they bring I mean, in those times for people when it seems like nothing else can. And the story of this hymn, Joseph Scriven, he wrote it for his mother in the late 19th century. He was living in Canada, and she was living in Ireland. And it's not like you could just FaceTime in those days. So he wrote this to comfort her and to comfort himself at that, that feeling of separation, of missing each other. So that was a little improvisation, and maybe a little tinge of country in there. Back to classical. So this is a Rocky Balboa-like story. Yeah, I did grow up in New Jersey, so I have lost my accent, but it comes back if I go there. Hey, how you doing? But Rocky's Philly. Well, it's Philadelphia, New Jersey. Anyway, so close enough. The story is this. I'm going to play a piece by Paganini, who was an Italian composer, lived in the end of the 1700s, early 1800s. He was a violinist, and he was a wild man. Remember that very first classical piece, the Gossec, that I played with the powdered wigs and everything? Well, Paganini was like a heavy metal person showing up in that world. Actually, there were many people who believed he wasn't, but they believed he was possessed because of the way he played. And he also had Marfan syndrome, like Rachmaninoff possibly. Very lanky guy with wiry hair and a thin, gaunt face, which added to the shock value of the way he played the violin. It was just shocking. But that wildness appealed to the Romantics who came later. I would say Paganini and Beethoven were these iconoclasts, and the Romantics, they loved that. The freedom, and also even the political implications of that, like Beethoven, but anyway, that's a whole other tangent we'll go to. So, so Franz Liszt arranged some Paganini, and here's why. Franz Liszt was born in 1811. He was something of a child prodigy, originally from what's now Hungary. But unlike Mozart, he didn't really catch on. Everyone was trying to be Mozart, or be like Mozart at that time, even though Daddy Mozart helped with 5-year-old Mozart's compositions, they found out recently, but still, he's still a genius. But Liszt, he was a prodigy, but then he ends up in Paris in the 1830s. It's not a bad place to be, but things were not going well for him. He was very stuck. He was depressed. He fell in love with a nobleman's daughter, and it didn't work out. He tried to jump in the Seine River. His father died. He was very ill. Adam, Liszt, they were very close. Liszt told his father on his deathbed, he said, "I want to become a priest." He was deeply Catholic. Father said, "Please be a musician. That's the best way you can be of service." At the time. But anyway, this whole thing about Liszt was a very complex person. He had a multifaceted personality. But so what happened was in this time period, when of deep depression, Liszt heard Paganini perform, and it just floored him. And he locked himself in a room for like a few years he practiced like crazy. While reading great literature, he became self-educated man, also Goethe, Dante, Shakespeare, and he emerged as Franz Liszt. That's what I mean by Rocky. What's the word? Self-renewal or whatever. So, self-improvement. So, this is Liszt's arrangement of the 24th Caprice for solo violin, which is an iconic theme and variations. Originally for solo violin, but of course Liszt changes it quite a bit. I'm actually doing a double arrangement, Liszt and then a later composer named Ferruccio Busoni. I love to say that. Sounds like I speak Italian. Ferruccio Busoni. Busoni's arrangement of Liszt's arrangement of Paganini. It's confusing. Let me play you the theme. Maybe you've heard it somewhere, then I'll just go at it. So, oops. Okay, it's off. All right. This is the theme, just so you famous, right? But of course, this is Liszt's version, and so many people after Liszt used this as the basis for their compositions. Brahms, Rachmaninoff, Lutoslawski, you name it, because it's just a great, thing, great melody, theme. fact, it's also a good workout. So, and the piano we have at home, both our pianos, we put felt cloth in there, so that you wonder, do I play that loud at home? No. But on this race car piano, it's a great piano. I'm going to enjoy it. So I may go a little over 7. Is that okay? Just maybe 5, 6, 7. Okay, if you don't mind, I don't know. I used to not have a watch, and I would just play and play and play. Anyway, that was not a good thing. So let's see. How about the thing that's most like Franz Liszt and Paganini, Roy Acuff? Yeah. We're just going on both sides of the pond, back and forth. I have to flip a switch. So this is an old, very old gospel tune, The Great Speckled Bird. And actually one of our cats, speckled cat, Shoko calls it. But that's, anyway, The Great Speckled Bird, which is, I think it's got like that evangelical sort of symbolism, the text to it. But the interesting thing is that the melody is the same as a famous country tune, I Know It Was God Who Made Honky Tonk Angels. Same melody, but very different text. This was the case, I mean, you go back to Martin Luther, and they would use songs that were popular songs and then make them into gospel, and vice versa. I think this was gospel first. So I'm going to try to play it in the style of Ray Acuff, the way he would sing it, to put his accent, his inflections, his wonderful rural Tennessee accent, which is a little bit like some of the accents around here that our little Max, Max, 4-year-old son, he's picking it up. We were driving the other day and he said, "Hey, look, it's the Howl River." But that's how Roy Acuff would sing, And it's wonderful, it's very melodic. And then we were at the Walmart, he said, "Oh, look, the highest Browns." And I said, "What?" Well, so I'm going to try to make it, and you should ask Shoko to do it. She does that voice perfectly. So, yeah, so here's the Great Speckled Bird. It's an improvisation. thought a couple more classical. Then I'll end with a few gospel Barnstormer type ones, you know. So here, maybe you want to hear another Paganini one. There's the crazy guy. They're fun to play, especially on this piano. So here's one. It's another Liszt Paganini Busoni study called La Campanella. I also love saying it makes it sound like I can speak Italian. And the campanella is a little bell. It's imitating the sound of a little bell. It's almost obnoxious at times, like a ringing bell. Oh, there's a bell. Well, it's not a bell, it's a train. That's a beautiful sound. I love the sound of the train. It's like this chord. So, you know, and it also reminds me of, there's some part of, remember the cicadas a few weeks back? Yeah, those guys buzzing in the ears. It has that feeling to it. So here it is, another real crazy one. La Campanella by Paganini, arranged by Liszt and Busoni. this time gospel all the way. So here is a couple pieces in the style of Mahalia Jackson, who I just love so much. Maybe the greatest musician ever, if I had to name one, just her phrasing in everything. She was very close to Martin Luther King Jr. You know the story about the I Have a Dream speech? That's her, really, because he had a prepared speech at the March on Washington, and Mahalia Jackson was standing behind him. The speech was getting a little, not dull, it couldn't be dull with him, but it was lagging, and she just stood up and shouted at him, said, "Martin, tell him about the dream." Then the rest is history. So here is an old spiritual. I'm going to do it in the style that I think that she does it in some recordings, Down by the Riverside. These are things that, you know, it's not clear who wrote them. Maybe not a single person. Maybe, you know, the spirituals that come out of the dark period of our country's history, slavery. And these songs, they go very deep. I mean, and they were passed down from generation to generation, done, you know. So, I was playing at somewhere, I won't say where, and I said, yeah, I'm gonna play something in the style of Mahalia Jackson, and someone in the back started laughing hysterically. And I was, you know, I admire her so much, and then I realized when I got in the car, because it made me feel really down. I thought, well, he thought I said Michael Jackson. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Michael Jackson can sing well, but it's totally different. That's probably what happened. So, to be clear, Down by the Riverside in the style of Mahalia Jackson. These kind of fireworks for the end. A couple more, real quick. This is, I'll do a shortened version of this, a jazzy version of Leaning on the Everlasting Arms. So you could do it 3 ways, maybe. Well, there's probably more, but the hymnal has, and it's not bad this way, but it's, which is good, you know, Sunday morning, sing it like that. you could countrify it a little bit like, or you could sing it like George Jones, wow, all fellowship. I can't really do his voice. But then I'm gonna, Charlie Daniels said George Jones could make an 8-syllable word out of the word church. But here's the jazzy version I'm gonna do. This is in a lot of the African American churches. This is a traditional style of, how they, do it there. So. I'll just do quickly again with a segue, so I won't talk as much. First one I'm going to do is a version of When the Saints Go Marching In the style of Mahalia Jackson. Then another Louisiana-born gospel musician whose life resembled Liszt's in some ways, being drawn to religion, but also drawn to more, you could say, worldly life. Jerry Lee Lewis. I'm going to do a thing in his style. I'm going to play I'll Fly Away in his style to conclude. So When the Saints, and then somehow I'll transition or make a segue or something, and then not the thing you drive and walk around, but you know what I mean. I should get one of those and play piano all day. But anyway, thank you very much for coming, and I do apologize I went too long a little bit, but I'll just do these two, and then we'll have a good evening. It's still light out, so yeah.
first thing, there is not an extra piano player in here. I thought there might have been because that was just crazy. And then the glisses on the Jerry Lee Lewis stuff on, come on. All right, so Robert, thank you so much. I'm going to have us celebrate Robert again in just a second, but I do want to remind you, and Robert, just thank you for helping us understand some of the backstories. That often music is that place, and it doesn't matter if it's secular, if it's religious, if it's music speaks to that place in our soul where we process the stuff we can't quite understand or fathom, and sometimes it's dark and difficult, but then there's also this spirit of hope that God gives us, and music, just the best of it, always gets back to that place. That no matter how difficult it is, there is hope. No matter how challenging things are, God is in our presence and will bring something through us and with us that means something, even out of the suffering. You helped us hear that again tonight, as great composers have. But also I want to remind you, Habitat does this as well. Because what they see is people in difficult situations who are fully gifted, that God has inspired and brought forth, and their stories matter. But sometimes they need some help being part of community in a way that gives voice to that. And that's what we do by helping. So please be generous in your donations tonight for that. Not only for Robert's amazing talent and the stories, but also we're in the business, as music inspires us and the Spirit moves us, to also help one another. And all of that is drawn together, and you brought it for us tonight, so thank you so much. Patty, thank you for coming and helping us to organize and to share in the community. For all of you who have come and been part of this, thank you so much. I know anytime Robert's doing something, you're going to hear. And Shoko was right. She goes, he's going something if he just keeps practicing. And I'm testing her. I think she's right. I think she's spot on.
I might.
There's hope.
There's hope.
Yeah.
There's always hope. Yeah.
Grind it out, man.
Even for me.
Once again, let's please show our appreciation to Robert and yeah. Especially thank you for allowing us to gather for your message of hope and love that is it's just a universe poured out for us, and music just unlocks that in so many ways. So we give you thanks for this great gift and our ability to share and to be in community and to sing the song of your hope. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Go in peace.
Thank you.